Coming up on this episode of Photography Online. We take a tour around a film factory, we tell you why there's still a purpose for shooting film, and Marcus finally gets his haircut. Welcome to a special episode of Photography Online, which we're bringing you from the Ilford Film Factory here in the north of England. I'll be showing you around and chatting to some of the team here to learn just what's involved with running one of the world's biggest film productions. We've also got this prize to give away. It is an Ilford Patterson starter kit, along with an extra 10 rolls of Ilford film worth £200. To be in with a chance of winning, all you need to do is keep an eye out for this box, which will appear somewhere in the show. Make a note of the time stamp when you first see it and then enter this as your answer using the link in the usual place. This starter kit has got everything you'll need to develop your first roll of film, and you'll get to choose which format and type of film you receive as well. All in all, it is a fantastic prize, so keep your eyes peeled from now on. If you're a digital only shooter, then you might be asking why you'd want to shoot film. Well, that's a valid question which we feel needs addressing.
In today's world, where almost everything is digital, is there still a purpose to shoot film? And if so, why?
Almost all the photos that we take today need to be in a digital format to be of much use. However, there's still a valid reason to shoot on film, and this is especially the case if shooting in black and white.
If our end usage of a photo requires it to be in a digital format, i.e. to show on a website, post to social media, send over the internet for printing, or simply edit in Lightroom or Photoshop, then surely it makes no sense to shoot such photos on film.
Well, this really depends on what you're looking to get out of photography and what it is about the process that you enjoy the most. Let me explain.
I often ask photographers what they do with their photos, and the most common answer by far is that they do nothing with them and they just sit on a hard drive somewhere. There's certainly nothing wrong with this, and if this applies to you, then it simply tells me that you enjoy the photo taking process, i.e. going out with your camera and taking photos. The end result, although satisfactory, is not the driving force behind why you pick up a camera, and this is okay.
Let's face it, sometimes it's just nice to be in the great outdoors, admiring stunning landscapes, or maybe watching wildlife while we take photos of it. And it's photography that gives us a reason to witness such moments in the first place.
It's the enjoyment of the process where shooting film offers so much more than what digital can provide. With a digital camera, you turn it on and off you go. It's all very easy. If you don't know what you're doing with the exposure, then the camera will take care of this for you. The camera will focus for you and even edit the photo for you, to the point where the user doesn't really need to do anything.
Even if we use a digital camera in manual mode, there's very little in terms of decisions which are required by the user. Now, many people see this as an advantage to digital, and I'm not knocking it for one moment. In fact, 90% of the photos that I take are digital photos, but that's because it's my work and I need to get my work done as efficiently as possible. If I'm just going out to take photos for my own enjoyment, then I find digital all a bit too, well, easy and lacking that challenge which I'm often looking for.
If you're in the camp where you're thinking that you can't be bothered with all the hassle of shooting on film, then firstly, that's okay. You certainly won't be in a small club. But digital photography has and is becoming far removed from how it all started, with much of the process now being done at the computer rather than in the field.
My interest in photography didn't start so that I could spend more time sitting in front of a computer editing my digital photos. I want to be outside in the natural world using equipment which I consider to be a lot more fun. There you are. Now, in the same way that some people like to listen to music on vinyl, Other people prefer to read a map than follow a GPS device. And some people like to drive a classic car, even though it requires a lot more maintenance. Now, they do this because listening to music on vinyl offers a more immersive experience. Reading a map involves using the brain a little bit more, and driving a classic car is just more fun than driving something new, reliable, and dare I say it, a little bit soulless. Now, often film photographers get mocked for trying to be too cool, but cool has nothing to do with it. I mean, look at me.
When shooting film, there are many more decisions which need to be made and other aspects which need to be considered. Which film best suits the scene? Shall I pull or push the ISO from the rated value? Do I need to adjust the exposure time to allow for the failure of the film to record longer exposures, etc., etc.?
It's this additional involvement which enhances the photographer's connection with the image. Rather than taking hundreds of digital files, all of which require little more thought than a bit of composition here and there, shooting on film, it slows you down and forces you to shoot fewer images. Yet your appreciation for these images will be far more pronounced than their equivalent digital files.
There's also a lack of anticipation with digital. The result is instant, which of course can be a good thing. But there's also benefits in not being able to see your results until days or even weeks later. Personally, I love developing film when I can't remember what photos are on it.
When we shoot on film, there is nowhere to hide. If we're not happy with one of the details of our shot, we can't just clone it out. If we're not happy with the sky that we get, we can't replace it. To do that, we need to digitize the photo, which kind of defeats the purpose in the first place. Now, shooting on film, it sharpens the mind and it forces us to raise our standards as to what is and isn't acceptable. If we turn up here with a digital camera, we're more inclined to take lots of shots and then leave and go on to another place. But with film, we have to invest time to set everything up. So we're more inclined to stay in one position until the light is perfect. So we're almost guaranteed to get a better shot.
But how does the physical quality of an image shot on film stand up to an equivalent shot taken on digital?
That would be another feature altogether, but ultimately it depends on the size of the sensor versus the size of the film area. If we take a 35mm film camera and compare it to a full-frame digital camera, the size of the sensor in this is identical to the film area in this. It would be no contest. This would win all day long in terms of both sharpness and dynamic range.
But with film, you can step things up a little. Or a lot. To sizes which will make even the largest medium format digital cameras look inferior. So the quality comparison doesn't really hold much weight, as there will always be a film camera which can beat any digital camera when it comes to resolution.
Shooting on film is photography with soul, and if you've never tried it, then I urge you to give it a go. Now, while it might not be for everybody, there's no denying that shooting film will improve your photography, as skills acquired through shooting film can easily be applied to digital as well. If you give a film photographer a digital camera, then the process will be a breeze. Give a digital photographer a film camera, and you watch the panic on their face set in.
I must admit, when I pick up a digital camera, I do welcome the security that I get from being able to see the photo immediately on the back of the camera, as this gives me the chance to make any changes to the exposure, depth of field or composition. I do also have a film camera, but it doesn't do my confidence much good, so I think Marcus does make a really good point that if you can use a film camera confidently, using a digital one will seem super easy in comparison. So as I mentioned at the start of the show, we are bringing this episode of Photography Online to you from the Ilford film factory. Ilford are one of the few iconic film brands and specialise in black and white emulsions. This is the pilot coating room where new films are tested before going to mass production. Ilford have been making films since 1879, and after a lull caused by the arrival of digital, they're now seeing a major resurgence in sales, which is great news. Let's go on a tour of the factory to see exactly what's involved when it comes to making photographic film, which is then shipped to keen photographers, maybe even you, from all over the world. Ask photographers anywhere in the world to name a black and white film brand, and the chances are that Ilford will pop up more than any other name. Ilford were established in 1879 in a small suburb to the east of London. The name might sound familiar: Ilford. As the company expanded, they needed new premises, and they found themselves moving halfway up the country to another city suburb, this time to the southwest of Manchester, to the village of Mobberley. They've been here since 1928, but moved in stages up until 1983, when this site became their sole manufacturing premises. The first thing that struck me when arriving at the Ilford factory was the sheer size of the place. In the heyday of film, over 2,000 employees worked here. Today it's just over 200, but things are picking up again, and the current workforce is having to work extra hard to keep up with demand. To get an insight into what's involved in the production of the tiny thing we put into our film cameras, I was invited to see the entire process from the very beginning.
These are the raw materials, the halide salts that we need for manufacturing our film and paper products. These are combined with silver nitrate that's held in a different area to produce our silver halide crystals.
And if you've ever wondered what the first stages of film looks like,
we manufacture a photographic emulsion which looks like that, which are small crystals of silver halide dispersed in gelatin. The manufacturing process requires that it's a fluid whilst it's being manufactured, but below about 30 degrees C, it's a solid.
The crystals in the emulsion have an average size of 1.2 microns, around 1,000th of a millimetre. There are basically two different processes: a conventional crystal growth, which is used for the plus films such as FP4+ and HP5+, and another called rapid mix, which is used for the professional grade products such as the Delta range. Once the emulsion is made, for both film and paper, it's kept in a giant refrigerator at 6 degrees Celsius.
When the batch is finished, that's what it feels like.
Oh wow, that's heavy.
You take the weight, but it feels like a rubber, you know, like an eraser, pencil eraser.
So how many rolls will that do?
A kilo of film emulsion coats about 11 square metres, whereas a kilo of paper emulsion coats about 30 square metres, and that's just the silver coat weight difference.
Andrew told me that in this room where all the film emulsion is stored, there's over £500,000 in silver value alone. But never mind about that, what happens from here?
So this is the process control system, where the guys are watching what the system is doing in terms of managing the manufacture of the emulsions. It's a hands-off approach. The guys very rarely need to intervene. So they're just watching what's going on.
Next up, it was time to see the very heart of the production process, the huge coating machine which applies the light-sensitive emulsion onto the backing film. It's the 13th coating machine Ilford have had, but for superstitious reasons, they've named it Machine 14. As machines go, it's pretty big, 110 metres long. When it was moved here in the early 1980s, it took 2.5 years to transport it and recommission it to be fully operational. It had to be recalibrated to work optimally with the local water, which apparently improved the film's transparency.
The thing about this machine is, when one roll ends and the next roll comes in, the machine doesn't stop. We have magazines that are allowed to fill up and empty to keep the machine charged with base as it's being coated.
We can't show you this coating machine in action as it needs to operate in complete darkness. Not great conditions to film in. They are, however, monitored from a control room where infrared cameras give us a glimpse of what it looks like and shows the team members who work in total darkness using touch as their only sense. There are a number of totally dark environments in the process where staff learn to do their job without relying on sight. When I was in the control room, the coating machine was processing 53 metres per minute, but I was told it can do double this when required. Once the film is coated and dried, it goes through a set of rigorous quality checks.
This is quality department. We're testing everything online. As soon as we make it, we test it as soon as we possibly can. The roll that I'm testing now is still being coated. This is the beginning of the second roll of this lot. I'm looking for any imperfections, anything that shouldn't be there, such as a coating line, or bubbles, or splashes from the edge, scratches, anything, miscoats. We have a multitude of defects that we look for. I'm happy with that.
Each roll of film is 1.1 metre wide and just shy of 2 kilometres long. The problem is that it's light sensitive, so getting to the next stage of the process in the finishing building is not straightforward. The solution is to do it in these, which are called coffins. They are light-tight containers which keep the film perfectly sealed from the atmosphere and, of course, the light as it's transported between buildings. Once safely into the next building, the film is now in the hands of Gaynor Hill, the finishing manager.
That coffin goes onto our slitting machines upstairs, and we slit that roll into these 31 pancakes. The length of the roll is about 1,800 metres, so it might be 600 metres in length or 900 metres length.
It's now starting to look like the film we're all familiar with, but how does it end up in 35mm cassettes and on 120 spools?
So the first part of the process is we tip in empty cassettes, and this hopper is putting them on the line, feeding them through the line, all the right orientation, so that when it goes past the computer it can read the barcode. Okay. If there's any rogue barcodes, just spits the cassette out so it can't get through onto the line. On the other side of that wall is your pancake with a stop point. Okay, so they put it onto the stop point, and it's going to go round a rotary perforating head and put all them perfs along the film. Yeah. Anything that's cut away from the film is sucked away, recycled, we get all the silver back out.
Each pancake will fill about 350 cassettes, with those cassettes all having a unique batch number so that any defects discovered by the quality control team can be easily traced and solved before leaving the factory. What I saw in production was all 35mm and 120 format film, but sheet film for large format cameras is also made, and once a year they custom make film to cater for the ultra large format market, something we'll be covering in more detail on a future show. But for now, what are the proportions of film formats leaving the factory?
I would say around 70% of the film that we make is in 35mm, so it's by far and away our most popular. The bulk of the rest of that is 120, and then there's a small portion that sits into sheet film with 4x5 and 8x10, obviously the most popular sizes.
Once all the various films are finished, they end up here in the warehouse. This is where orders are shipped all over the world, with a team of 17 picking from the vast area of shelving to satisfy all the orders. These could be anything from a single roll of 35mm film placed on the Ilford website to orders like this, going to a major US retailer and worth around $1 million. One common concern film photographers have is with X-ray fogging. How do Ilford get around this problem when shipping their sensitive products all over the world?
When we ship on large pallets and in large order quantities, there's no issues with that. One of the challenges going forward that we within the film community will have is within airports and the new CT scanners that are getting put into place. They're quite prevalent in the US at the moment, for example. And we have done testing in conjunction with the Department for Transport here in the UK, and we do know that they have the potential to fog films quite easily, unlike traditional X-ray scanners. The DFT have issued a communication to the UK airports to say that people are entitled to request a hand inspection of their films. We're also looking at talking to some of the courier companies, your DHLs, your UPSs, to see if we can find out on the smaller parcels, for example, that smaller dealers may use to ship across country, whether they're going to be impacted too. So that's something that we're actively working on at the moment, in conjunction with our distribution partners and with authorities as well, see if we can mitigate some of the risk that's around these new scanners.
One thing which struck me when meeting all the staff here is the dedication and pride they have for the brand. Working at Ilford doesn't seem to be a step on the career ladder, it is a career. Just ask the people we've met how long they've been here.
34 years.
29 years.
39 years. Can't believe it, 39 years.
So next time you buy a roll or sheet of film, you'll now be able to appreciate the work that went into it. This is the Ilford darkroom where the staff come to use and test their products. You'll find community darkrooms like this all over the world, and there's probably one in your area which will allow you to use the facilities for a small fee. On the subject of film photography, next February we will be running our first ever film-only workshop. For 6 nights, our location will be the stunning Isles of Harris and Lewis, which we featured on our previous show, and we'll be staying in our own private hunting lodge. As well as spending most of the time in amazing locations shooting film, we'll also be showing everyone how to develop their own film at home and even do some contact printing without the aid of a darkroom. Basically, we'll be showing you what you can easily do yourself at home without the need for any fancy tools. We'll have a wide range of cameras for people to try, from 35mm right up to large format. The trip is being run in partnership with Ilford, who will be providing some film for everyone to try, and Matt Parry, marketing manager here at Ilford, will also be joining us to answer any questions and help people on location with their choice of film. If that sounds like something that you would like to join us for, there are a few places left, so simply download the PDF brochure from the relevant link below. Now, one of the common reasons that many photographers give for not shooting more film is the cost. Unlike digital, where you can take as many shots as you like without it costing anything, this stuff here is not free, and we've just seen why. But what is the real difference between the economy of buying and using a digital setup versus an analog setup of the same quality? In response to many of your comments, Marcus finally got his haircut, and he's back with the important question.
So we've already discussed the pros of shooting film, but what about the cost? Film is expensive, right? And then of course you need to get it processed, which costs more money. Digital, on the other hand, is free. We can shoot as many photos as we like and it costs us nothing. So surely it's a no-brainer that digital is cheaper. Or is it? While it's true that taking photos digitally doesn't cost us anything, that's only a very small part of the economy of photography. To get a true comparison, we need to go back to a blank piece of paper and look at what it will cost us to get 2 different systems up and running, one digital and one film, and then maintain them for a period of time, potentially a few years. When it comes to film cameras, there aren't many which are still made new, so we're generally looking at the used market, which will offer us plenty of choice when it comes to formats and budgets. Now, without getting into some very niche markets, 35mm film, or full frame, is typically seen as the smallest of the formats. Then we go up a step to medium format, and then we go right up to the top to large format, which is the true king of detail. Now, out of these, medium format probably offers the best bang for our buck when comparing the results that we're going to get. 35mm film will struggle to compete with the quality of modern digital cameras. So we use medium format for our film setup and a full frame digital camera for the alternative, as these two offer comparable image quality. Medium format film cameras all take the same size film, which is called 120. However, different cameras will use different amounts of this film to record a single image. 120 film has a height of 6 centimetres, which is the limiting factor. So all medium format photos are 6 centimetres along one of their edges. So medium format could be 6 by 4.5 centimetres, which will give you a total of about 15 or 16 frames before the roll runs out. Then we go up to the square format, which is 6 by 6, which will give us 12 frames per roll, 6 by 7, which will give us 10 frames per roll, 6 by 9, which will give us 8 frames per roll, and right at the top, 6 by 17, where we'd only get 4 frames before the roll ran out. Now, there are other sizes available too, but the ones just mentioned are the most common. Let's take 6 by 6 and 6 by 7 formats as our chosen sizes, as these fit comfortably in the middle of the range, using enough film area to capture stunning results, but not so much as to cost us too much per shot. If we look at what's available, the two obvious choices are a Mamiya or a Bronica, both of which are professional cameras capable of amazing results, and they come with a huge range of lenses and accessories. Now, you can pick up a good condition Mamiya for anywhere around £500 to £1,200, but that does include a lens and a film back, so it's a complete system. A Bronica 6x6 system could be half that, offering amazing value for money considering the quality it will output. Now, you'll also need a handheld light meter, which will set you back around another £150. And then of course, add in a couple of lenses, which would be a bargain at about £250 each. And our total spend to get a really good pro system will be around £2,000. And that's at the upper end of the range. You could easily do it for considerably less. Now, obviously, we would also need a tripod and a bag, maybe some filters, but we would need the same for a digital setup too. So let's eliminate these from both systems to keep things simple. Now let's do the same for a digital setup, purchasing used gear to keep the comparison fair. We need something high-res, full frame and of pro quality. So we could choose something like the Canon 5DSR, the Nikon D850 or the Sony A7R4. For the body only, we'd be looking at a minimum of £1,500, maybe as much as £2,000. So we've already spent the same amount of money, but we haven't got any lenses yet. Throw in a trio of primes, replicating what we've had for the film setup, plus some memory cards, and we're looking at least another £1,500. So let's take a middle value from this range and say we need to spend £3,500 to get a comparable setup to our film system. Now, these are our total spend so far. As you can see, the film system is almost half the price. But wait, I hear you cry, what about the cost of film and processing? You are of course correct. With our digital system, we can take as many photos as we like, it doesn't cost us a penny. But with the film system, we pay each time we press the shutter. So our digital setup is good to go, but our film setup is useless unless we spend more money on film. Now, to keep the numbers easy to digest, let's agree a budget of £1,500 which we can spend on film and processing, which means we now have spent the same value on both systems, £3,500. Now, film varies in price drastically, with some emulsions costing a lot more than others. So it's difficult to suggest what an average price would be, as colour film is more expensive than black and white, and positive films tend to be more expensive than negative films. But seeing we're bringing you this show from Ilford, let's use their prices as a base for our calculations. A roll of film for our medium format camera will cost around £5, and then it will be another £5 to get that film processed, although the cost for this can also vary. This equates to £1 each time we press the shutter. So that allows us to take 1,500 frames, which on film is a lot of photography. If we go out once a week and shoot a roll or two each time we go out, our £1,500 film budget will last us for 2 years. After this time, our digital gear will have depreciated significantly, typically losing around 30 to 40% of the value that we paid for it. The film gear, however, will have increased in value. This is not just a prediction, but based on market trends over recent years. For example, 4 or 5 years ago, you could pick up one of these, a Mamiya RZ67, for around £400 to £500. Today, you're looking at 3 times that price for a good one. I bought this Fuji 6x9 camera 2 years ago for £500. Today, you'd be lucky to find one in this condition for less than £1,000. The same patterns are seen with most good film gear. If looked after, it will increase in value as it's no longer being made. So it's better than having money in the bank. So after a few years, our digital gear is worth maybe half the value we paid for it. But our film gear may be worth twice what we paid for it. So that gives us another £2,000 to spend on film, and we're still breaking even. When you consider that repairs to film cameras tend to be cheaper, and that when you add the cost of buying new batteries for your digital gear, then it's easy to make a case for film being the cheaper option. Now, I'm not making that case, but hopefully I have illustrated that shooting film isn't as expensive as you may think. Of course, both film and digital systems can be found at a fraction of the prices I'm suggesting here, but I think the examples I've used will provide comparable quality. Of course, when you go up to large format, things can start to get really expensive for the film, but the gear can still be amazingly cheap. This camera here from Intrepid costs only £480, and that's new. You can put a high quality lens on this for around the same amount, way cheaper than any digital equivalent. With digital, you could take 50,000 photos in a year and it won't impact on your budget. But ask yourself why you need to take that many photos. I personally have hard drives full of digital files, 98% of which I will never need and have no use for. Why do I want to add another few thousand to this? With film, you can reduce costs drastically by buying it in bulk and developing it yourself at home. But the calculations I have listed here are based on buying in normal quantities and using Pro Labs for processing. Basically, the worst case scenario when it comes to costs. This brings us back to one of the appeals of shooting on film. It slows you down, forces you to be more considered in your approach to the photos you take, which in turn swings the balance from quantity to quality of shots. Surely a much healthier approach to photography. You could of course do what I do and shoot both digital and film. That's guaranteed to cost you double. So that's where I'm going wrong.
So we're heading back to Photography Online HQ now, but we're going via Blackpool, where I'll be faced with the task of how to capture the character of a seaside town in 24 hours. I'll be shooting on both digital and film, as there is a place for both, as we've hopefully demonstrated in this show. Each has its advantages. A big thank you to Ilford for allowing us to see what goes on behind closed doors, and thanks to you as well for watching. Hopefully you managed to see this box make a cameo appearance somewhere in the show. If not, you'll have to watch all over again. Oh well. Don't forget, in addition to our 2 monthly recorded shows, we also host a 90-minute live show on the 3rd Sunday of every month, where we delve deeper into some of the topics that we've covered earlier on in the month. Plus, we have guest photographers popping in as well. On our next PO Live show, we'll be joined by US large format photographer Matt Marash, who will no doubt have plenty to add to the topics that we've covered today. Our live show is available to our supporters on our PO Live level or above, so if you want to get an additional 90 minutes, and sometimes it does end up being nearly 2 hours, of Photography Online every month, then simply press the join button or go to the relevant link down below. If you can't join us for the live show, then I'll be back in just 2 weeks' time, when we'll be comparing the Fuji GFX 50S Mark II versus the 100S to see what difference you get for the extra £2,000. Until then, take good care, but most of all, take good photos.
There are still valid reasons for shooting on film, and this is particularly the case. One more. There's still a valid reason to shoot on film, and this is particularly. Then you need to get it processed, which costs. Right, rewind it on the. Stop that. Shooting on film forces you to slow down. You'll take fewer photos. I personally have a bloody hell of £500. Today,